I stared at the text message from my father for a full minute, letting the familiar sting of dismissal wash over me. Meetings at 10 a.m. You can watch the live stream. Too many people in the boardroom already. Sutton Technologies' gleaming headquarters stretched 40 stories into the Manhattan skyline, each window reflecting the morning sun like a reminder of everything I'd helped build. I designed the international expansion strategy that took us from a $20 million family business to a $400 million tech empire. But apparently, I didn't deserve a seat at the table. My name is Katherine Sutton, and at 35, I was technically the executive vice president of global strategy. Technically, because my father, Richard Sutton, had slowly been stripping away my responsibilities for the past year, redistributing them to my younger brother, James, and his fraternity brother turned CFO, Mark Davidson. I glanced at my watch. 9:45 a.m. The acquisition meeting would start soon. Masterson Corp., our biggest competitor, had made an unsolicited offer to buy Sutton Technologies for $580 million, a hostile takeover wrapped in a friendly envelope. Miss Sutton? My assistant, Olivia Pierce, appeared in my office doorway. Everything's ready. I nodded, trying to hide my bitterness. They're not expecting us in the boardroom. No, she agreed, a slight smile playing at her lips. They're not. Olivia had been with me for 3 years, ever since I hired her fresh from Harvard Business School. While everyone else saw a quiet, efficient assistant, I recognized something more, a strategic mind sharp enough to cut diamond. Through the glass walls of my 38th floor office, I could see people filing into the main boardroom 2 floors below. James in his perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit, Mark with his Rolex glinting under the fluorescent lights, and my father holding court at the head of the table. My phone buzzed again. A message from James. "Don't worry, sis. We'll fill you in after we close the deal." That smirking emoji was the last straw. "Olivia," I said quietly, "show me." She placed a thick folder on my desk, opening it to reveal documents I'd never seen before. Stock purchase agreements, voting trust certificates, private placement memorandums, all dated over the past 18 months. "How?" I started. "When they began sidelining you," Olivia explained, "I started tracking unusual transactions. Small stock sales, privately held shares changing hands. Your brother has been quietly selling his shares to raise cash for his new venture fund." I leaned forward, scrutinizing the numbers. "How many shares? Combined with your existing 15% stake and what I've acquired through various shell companies." She paused. "We now control 51.3% of Sutton Technologies." My head snapped up. "We?" Olivia's professional demeanor cracked slightly, revealing a flash of steel underneath. "The shares are held by Winterbridge Capital. You're the sole director." I sat back, realization dawning. While they'd been playing corporate politics, Olivia had been executing a silent takeover. Every time they excluded me from a meeting, every time they dismissed my input, they'd never noticed her quietly collecting proxy rights and purchasing shares. "The Masterson offer?" I asked. "A setup," she confirmed. "I may have suggested to their board that Sutton Technologies was vulnerable. They did exactly what we expected." Through the glass, I could see the Masterson Corp representatives entering the boardroom. Their lawyer began distributing documents as my father smiled broadly, probably already counting his payout. "They think this meeting is about selling the company," I said slowly. "It is." Olivia's smile widened slightly. "Just not to Masterson." My phone lit up with another text from James. "Boardroom's packed. Livestream link in your email. Don't want to miss your baby brother's big moment. I looked at the document in front of me, then at Olivia, then at the smug faces in the boardroom below. How long until they realize? The meeting starts in 3 minutes, she replied, checking her tablet. I'd say they'll figure it out in about 10. I stood up, smoothing my channel blazer. Let's not keep them waiting then. One more thing, Olivia added, pulling out another folder. You'll want to see the internal audit results before we go in, particularly the section about James's creative accounting. I flicked through the pages, my eyes widening at the documented evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. They hadn't just been pushing me out. They'd been looting the company. Everything's verified, I asked. Triple-checked. The SEC would be very interested. I closed the folder, feeling a calm certainty settle over me. Years of being underestimated, dismissed, and betrayed had led to this moment. Send the live stream link to my phone, I said, gathering the documents. I want to watch their faces when we walk in. Olivia nodded, already typing. Security has been notified. It is standing by to cut access to all systems on your signal. I took one last look at my office, at the company I'd helped build, at the family that had tried to push me out. In 10 minutes, everything would change. Ready? Olivia asked, holding the door. I smiled, feeling the weight of 51.3% ownership in my hands. Let's go say hello to the board. The elevator ride down to the 36th floor was silent except for the soft tap of Olivia's fingers on her tablet. She'd organized everything meticulously. Security teams positioned at every exit, it ready to lock down all systems, even a press release drafted and ready to go. The Masterson team doesn't know, I asked. They think they're here for a standard acquisition meeting, Olivia confirmed. Their CEO's face, when he realizes he's been played, should be interesting. Through my phone, I watched the live stream as James took the podium. His confidence was breathtaking. Standing there in his $5,000 suit, addressing the board like he'd earned his position through something other than nepotism. Today marks a historic moment for Sutton Technologies, he announced, his voice carrying through my earpiece. The Masterson acquisition represents. I muted the audio, turning to Olivia. Show me the proof of embezzlement again. She pulled up detailed financial records on her tablet. Over the past 18 months, James and Mark had systematically siphoned off nearly $28 million through a complex web of shell companies and fake vendor contracts. The pattern is obvious once you know where to look, Olivia explained. They created consulting firms that existed only on paper, then billed Sutton Technologies for services never rendered. Classic fraud, just executed with better paperwork. And Dad knew everything, signed off on most of it. We have his electronic signatures on all the key documents. The elevator stopped. Through the glass walls, I could see the boardroom 20 feet away. James was still speaking, gesturing enthusiastically, at a PowerPoint presentation about synergy opportunities. Ms. Sutton, a deep voice greeted us. Michael Chen, head of security, stood waiting with 2 of his team. Everything's in position. I nodded. Anyone tries to leave that room without my permission. They don't, he finished firmly. My phone buzzed again. Another text from James. Killing it in here, sis. Don't worry, I'll make sure you keep your job after the merger. I showed the message to Olivia, who actually laughed. Should we tell him you've already decided on his severance package? Let's break his heart gently, I replied, though we both knew there would be nothing gentle about what came next. I pulled up the internal audit report on my phone, sending copies to every board member's email with a single click. In the boardroom, I watched as phones began buzzing simultaneously. James faltered mid-sentence as notifications lit up across the room. My father frowned, reaching for his phone. Mark's face suddenly lost its smug expression as he opened the document. "Right on schedule," Olivia murmured, checking her watch. "Would you like to see the surveillance footage we gathered?" She pulled up videos on her tablet. James meeting with fraudulent vendors in underground parking lots. Mark shredding documents after hours. My father in his office, explicitly discussing how to hide transactions from Katherine's prying eyes. "They never considered that your quiet assistant might be watching," Olivia said, her satisfaction evident. Rich men in expensive suits tend to ignore women they consider beneath them. Through the glass, I could see the panic spreading. Board members were whispering urgently to each other. The Masterson team looked confused. James had stopped speaking entirely, his face growing paler by the second. My father stood up abruptly. "We need a brief recess." "Actually," I said into my phone, triggering the boardroom speaker system, "you need to stay exactly where you are." Every head in the room snapped toward the sound of my voice. Through the glass walls, they could see me standing in the hallway, Olivia by my side, security personnel positioned strategically behind us. "The meeting will continue," I continued, my voice echoing through the speakers, just with a slightly different agenda. "What is this?" James demanded, but his voice shook slightly. "Check your email again," I replied. "You'll find updated ownership records for Sutton Technologies. Pay particular attention to the controlling interest section." I watched through the glass as they frantically refreshed their phones. The color drained from my father's face as he realized what he was seeing. "Impossible," he whispered, but the microphones picked it up. "These shares? Where did they?" "Would you like to explain the fraudulent consulting contracts first?" I asked. "Or should we start with the offshore accounts you've been hiding from the IRS?" Mark jumped to his feet. "You can't prove." "Sit down, Mr. Davidson." Olivia spoke for the first time, her voice carrying clearly through the speakers. "The SEC has already received copies of everything we're about to discuss." The Masterson CEO looked between us and my family, realization dawning on his face. "This isn't an acquisition meeting, is it?" "Oh, it is," I replied. "Just not the one you were expecting." I nodded to Olivia, who pressed a button on her tablet. The boardroom's main screen lit up with a new presentation, Sutton Technologies Restructuring Plan, effective immediately. "Now," I said, reaching for the boardroom door handle, "shall we begin?" The faces staring back at me were a symphony of shock, betrayal, and dawning horror. My father gripped the table like it might save him. James looked like he might throw up on his expensive shoes. I smiled, feeling the weight of years of dismissal falling away. "I hope you saved the livestream link, little brother. You won't want to miss what happens next." The boardroom fell silent as I walked in, Olivia 2 steps behind me, security positioned at every exit. The air felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. "Katherine," my father started, attempting to regain control. "This is highly irregular." "Irregular?" I cut him off, my voice sharp, like the $28 million missing from company accounts. "Or irregular like the fake consulting firms James has been running." The Masterson team shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their CEO, David Masterson, looked like he was calculating his fastest escape route. "Mr. Masterson," I turned to him, I apologize for the deception. You were brought here under false pretenses. I'm beginning to gather that, he replied dryly. Olivia, please show everyone the real numbers. She pressed a button on her tablet, and the screen filled with transaction records, bank statements, and damning email threads. Over the past 18 months, I announced, James Sutton and Mark Davidson, with full knowledge and approval from CEO Richard Sutton, have systematically embezzled $28.4 million through a network of shell companies. James shot to his feet. You don't have proof. September 15th, 2:14 p.m. Olivia interrupted smoothly. You're meeting with Thomas Werner in the parking garage of the Four Seasons. Would you like to see the surveillance footage? She pulled up the video. James's face went from red to gray as he watched himself accepting an envelope, the audio crystal clear. Dad will sign off on the invoices. Katherine won't notice a thing. Or perhaps, I continued, we should discuss the offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, the ones holding funds stolen from company pension plans. Mark Davidson started edging toward the door, but Michael Chen stepped forward, blocking his path. Sit down, Mr. Davidson, I said coldly. The FBI will want to speak with you about those wire transfers. My father stood up slowly, his authority visibly crumbling. Katherine, whatever you think you found, we can explain. Like you explained cutting my voting rights? I asked. Or how about explaining why my signature was forged on board resolutions I never saw? I nodded to Olivia, who distributed thick folders to each board member. Inside you'll find detailed evidence of fraud, tax evasion, and securities violations. The SEC has already been notified. However, I paused, letting the thread hang. There might be room for discretion, depending on your cooperation, in the next few minutes. The independent board members were already flipping through the documents, their expressions growing more horrified with each page. Jesus Christ, Richard, one of them muttered. What have you done? What I had to do, my father snapped. This company needed strong leadership, not some overeducated consultant playing at business. Playing? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make him flinch. While you were playing with fraudulent contracts, I was building the Asian market from scratch. While James was stealing from pension funds, I was developing the technology that tripled our market share. I walked to the head of the table, his seat, until now. Would you like to know what your strong leadership has cost? I pressed a button, and new figures filled the screen. Stock value down 23% in 6 months. Client retention falling. Innovation stagnant. The Masterson offer would have solved. James started. The Masterson offer was a trap. David Masterson himself interrupted. One your sister apparently set. He turned to me, genuine admiration in his voice. Well played, Miss Sutton. Thank you, I replied. Now shall we discuss the real changes happening today? I placed a single document on the table. Winterbridge Capital now controls 51.3% of Sutton Technologies. I am the sole director. Impossible, James whispered. I would have known if that many shares were. Too busy checking your offshore accounts, Olivia asked innocently. Or maybe too busy ignoring the quiet assistant who watched you steal from your own company. The room erupted in chaos. Board members demanded explanations. The Masterson team started gathering their things. James looked like he might pass out. Enough. My voice cut through the noise. Here's what happens next. I began laying out documents one by one. Richard Sutton, James Sutton, and Mark Davidson are hereby removed from all positions within Sutton Technologies. Your access to all company systems and facilities will be revoked in. I checked my watch. Approximately 45 seconds. You can't. My father began. I can and I am. Furthermore, you have exactly 48 hours to return every dollar stolen from this company, or the FBI gets everything we've collected. Mark Davidson slumped in his chair, defeated. James was texting frantically, probably to his lawyers. The board will be restructured. I continued. Mr. Masterson, I believe we can find more productive ways to collaborate than a hostile takeover. He nodded thoughtfully. I look forward to those discussions. And finally, I turned to my father, who had aged a decade in the past hour. You should know that Mom's trust fund, the one you've been trying to access, I've already moved it beyond your reach. That was the final blow. He fell back into his chair, all pretense of authority gone. Olivia, I said quietly, please escort my family out of the building. Their personal items will be shipped to them after a thorough audit. She smiled, pressing a final button on her tablet. Throughout the building, doors clicked as security protocols engaged. It's done, she said. All access revoked. I looked at my father, brother, and their co-conspirator one last time. I believe you can watch the rest of this meeting online, I said. The live stream link should still work. The next 24 hours transformed Sutton Technologies. Security teams supervised as James, Mark, and my father were escorted from the building, their access cards deactivated, their emails archived and frozen. Employees watched in stunned silence as the men who had ruled the company like their personal kingdom were reduced to civilians waiting for their drivers on the street below. By midnight, Olivia had orchestrated a complete digital lockdown. Every password changed, every account secured, every document preserved for the pending investigations. She worked with a quiet efficiency that made me realize why she'd been so effective at gathering evidence. No one had ever really seen her coming. The offshore accounts are being frozen, she reported, bringing me coffee and my father's. Now my office on the top floor. Their personal devices have been remotely wiped of company data, though James did try to delete quite a few interesting emails first. I looked out over the Manhattan skyline, the city lights reflecting off buildings like stars. Any response to the repayment demand? Their lawyers contacted us an hour ago. They're willing to negotiate terms. I turned from the window. There are no terms. Full repayment or federal prosecution. They have? I checked my watch. 39 hours left to decide. The next morning, the Wall Street Journal ran the story. Sutton Technologies announces leadership change amid financial investigation. The stock actually rose 8% in early trading as investors responded to the transparency and decisive action. I spent the day in back-to-back meetings with board members, executives, and team leaders. Many had suspected something was wrong, but had been too afraid to speak up. Now, with evidence of the fraud exposed, the stories came pouring out. They killed my entire development budget, the head of R&D confided. Said we needed to focus on core profit centers. Now I know where that money really went. By evening, the first wire transfers arrived. James surrendered first, returning $8.2 million from his Cayman accounts. Mark Davidson followed with $6.5 million, along with a signed confession his lawyers probably hadn't approved. My father held out until hour 47. His transfer of $13.7 million came with a single-line email. You've destroyed this family. I forwarded his message to Olivia, who had become my de facto chief of staff. She replied within seconds. No, they destroyed it themselves. You just exposed the rot. 1 week after the takeover, I called my first full company meeting. The auditorium was packed with employees from every department, the tension palpable as I took the stage. Many of you have worked here longer than I have. I began. You've watched the company grow, change, and lately, stumble. Today, I want to share our path forward. Over the next hour, I outlined the new Sutton Technologies, increased R&D funding, restored pension plans, merit-based promotions, and a complete restructuring of the executive team based on talent rather than connections. Transparency and innovation will be our foundations, I announced. No more hidden accounts, no more fraudulent contracts, no more decisions made in secret boardrooms. The applause started slowly, then built to a thunderous standing ovation. In the back, I saw Olivia smile for the first time in days. The changes came quickly after that. David Masterson and I negotiated a strategic partnership instead of a takeover, combining our technologies to open new markets. The stock rose another 15% on the announcement. James attempted one last power play, trying to rally shareholders for a proxy fight. It died quickly when Olivia released evidence of his attempts to delete incriminating emails. He resigned his shares in exchange for avoiding criminal charges, though the IRS was still very interested in his tax returns. 3 months after the takeover, I sat in my office reviewing quarterly results. Revenue up 24%. Employee retention improved. Innovation pipeline fuller than ever. A knock at the door interrupted my analysis. Olivia entered, carrying a newspaper. You might want to see this, she said, handing me the business section. The headline read, Sutton Technologies named most innovative company in tech sector. Below was a photo of me in the new research lab we'd opened, surrounded by engineers and developers. There's something else, Olivia added, placing a folder on my desk. Your father's trying to access the company pension fund again. Through a proxy this time. I sighed, opening the folder. Send everything to the SEC. No more protecting them from consequences. She nodded, then hesitated. He's also requested a meeting. Says he wants to heal the family. I thought about the years of dismissal, the casual cruelty, the systematic destruction of everything I'd worked for. Then I thought about the company we were building now, stronger and more ethical than they could have imagined. Tell him he can watch our next shareholders meeting online, I replied. The live stream link still works. Olivia smiled, understanding perfectly. I'll have security update the blocked list. As she turned to leave, I called after her. Why did you do it? Help me take them down. She paused at the door. Because you built while they destroyed. Because you earned everything they stole. She straightened her impeccable blazer. And because I believe talent and integrity should win over privilege and fraud. I nodded, turning back to the quarterly reports. Outside my window, the sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of possibility. Sometimes the quietest people in the room are the ones you should watch most carefully. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in the takeover, but in rebuilding something better from the ruins of betrayal. And sometimes, just sometimes, justice comes with a corner office and a really good assistant.